I won the first gold trophy of my life last month, and yes, it was playing Malifaux 4th edition. There was just one problem though. My dumbass forgot to record enough footage for a proper battle report. So instead, you're getting a miniature painting time-lapse with the 2 models that basically carried me to victory while I walk you through the 3 games that I played that day. If you're a Warhammer 40k player who's been curious about a tighter skirmish game with way fewer models on the table, stick around because competitive Malifaux is pretty wild. Spring Break 2026 was held at the arena in Falkirk. It's a 1-day 3-round event with 2 hours 15 minutes per round. This was my 6th Malifaux tournament, and we had 10 players that day. I think we were supposed to have 12, but I'm not quite sure what happened there. If you see my battle report, you'll know that I'm a dirty Neverborn player. I got into Malifaux back in October 2024 with the Nightmare keyword, so Dreamer is what I'm most comfortable with. I did pick up the Woe keyword for 4th edition though. I've been getting my ass handed to me with Pandora by the top UK players, so it was time I put my hyperbolic time chamber training to good use. The round setups were posted on Bag of Tools about a week before the event, so I had time to plan ahead. Based on the strats, I plan on going with Dreamer Fast Asleep for Recover Evidence, Pandora Tyrant-Torn for Informants, and Dreamer Insomniac for Boundary Dispute. I also mapped out the scheme path for each round to ease the mental load of the day, though I was ready to pivot depending on the game state. I used Theory Foe's scheme tree app for this. And with that out of the way, let's get into the games. My first opponent was Gary, soloing Sand Deep for the whole event. Gary used to play in 2nd edition and early 3rd edition, but only recently came back to Malifaux. I actually introduced him to 4E via TTS back in November, after he was looking for a game on the Discord. We were both very surprised to find out that we lived in the same country. He's been smashing it on the MWS since that intro game. We haven't played since, so I knew I was in for a tough one. I've never played against Sand Deep before, but I knew one version loved summoning, and that Kudra is pretty scary. As planned, I ran Dreamer Fast Asleep. No way in hell was I summoning stuff for Recover Evidence. Yes, I brought the Hooded Rider as a taxi for Dreamer, since I really wanted to avoid leaning on the Sister Sisters as much as I can. Gary had the same idea, I think, and declared Sand Deep the Quiet Flame. My scheme path was Breakthrough, Assassinate, Scout the Rooftops, and Detonate Charges. We played on this ice volcano map with 3 large towers. I put my strat marker in the center, while Gary put his on the same side as the giant tower in his deployment zone. Gary deployed most of his heavy hitters on the taller tower in his deployment zone, ready to be tossed by Banasuva. Seeing this, I put the Rex on the same side of his strat to make use of Don't Turn Your Back. I paired Widow up with Chumpy so she can throw him up, and of course, the Rider with Dreamer. The plan was to score the strat early with the Insidious Madness, and grab the second VP and score Breakthrough using bid markers. The first part mostly worked out. I picked up the strat on my first activation with the Madness, but I didn't realize how much kidnapping power Sand Deep had with the Wind Golem and the Ice Golem, and the Insidious Madness was quickly murdered. I tried to protect the strat marker with the Alp, but he went down pretty quickly too. I misplayed here. I really should have put the Rex on top of the strat, but I was playing super cagey after losing the Madness. In turn though, I kidnapped Aaron with the Rex and wailed on him with the Rider and Dreamer, tying us on the strat. I couldn't get the second Recover Evidence VP or Breakthrough though, since Aaron survived 1 AP too long since I flipped the black. And I also mispositioned the Dreamer, so Chompy had no space to jump to. Turn 1 ended 2-1 for Gary. I kept Breakthrough because I don't really know why I kept Breakthrough. But hey, Gary also kept his as well. Start turn 2, the Rex opened up by munching on Pandora, but didn't have enough AP to pick up the strat. A lot of brawling happened in the middle after that, and unfortunately I lost the Rider and Chompy. Gary only managed to pick up one of the strat marker though, since he burned so much AP killing the Rider. I failed to score the second point of Recover Evidence here as well, since Sandy was handing out so much slow with Arcane Storm. I did manage to get Widow to pick up the marker that Kandara dropped earlier though. I also had one Alp in the corner, planning to score Breakthrough with him, but he failed to leap into get into Gary's deployment. So instead, I resigned him to set up for the second point of Recover Evidence next turn. End of turn 2, score was 3-2 for Gary, with no scheme scored for either of us. I dropped Breakthrough and went for Assassinate on Banasuva, and Gary dropped Runic Binding. At this point, I had no idea how it was going to turn out. Dreamer was pretty low on health, and Gary still had one unclaimed strat marker left. Start turn 3, Banasuva climbed the tower and tried to kill Dreamer, but was unsuccessful. I activated the Rex pulling off the tower, and out of pure dumb luck, pulling Banasuva off the tower actually took him off the center line, so Gary couldn't score a frame job since the damage is applied after the move. The Rex finished off Banasuva and picked up the strat marker, scoring me 2 points of Assassinate. Dreamer died shortly after this, and Garrett picked up 2 strat markers, since I couldn't defend all of them. The Alp just had enough time to drop 2 scheme markers for the second point of Recover Evidence before we ran out of time. This barely got me the win at 5 VP to 4. It was an absolutely crazy game. Schemes went out the window, and it was just straight up murder. It really could have gone either way. Gary's models were beautifully painted, by the way. He built this lit up base and modified them so that the models can come off so he can safely swap them around. What an absolutely genius idea. After run 1, we had a wee break for lunch and the best painted competition. The category this time was unique models, which is pretty broad. I usually use best painted to force myself to paint something new, but March was super busy. I had family friends staying over and spent way too much time editing the Dreamer vs. Vix battle report. And I couldn't enter my Nightmare models since they already won Best Painted last GT, so I entered Wrath instead, which was my only other unique model that I had painted. There were 7 entries in total, pretty stiff competition. And to no one's surprise, Gary's Cassandra took home the trophy. Gary did such an amazing job with the model, like the attention to detail, non-metallic metal everywhere, including the base, by the way. I talked about the lit up base earlier, but that was just a cherry on top of everything else. Super well deserved. Moving on to round 2, we have Wedge, Informants, Take the High Ground, and Ensnare. I ended up playing on the same table as round 1. I was up against Jared playing Bayou, and he was an absolute pleasure to play against. Jared had declared Ulix for the game. Looking at the cards, I noticed a lot of fortitude abilities like Thick Skin and Resilient, so I would have loved to take Dreamer here. But I did make a promise to myself to play Pandora, and so I did. I did out of keyword hire and Insidious Menace for access to the Fright token though, since I can still notice attack through Delirium and Delirious Thralls. I am ashamed to admit that I did have to rely on the Sister Sister crutch, since I lacked confidence in my ability to pilot Pandora. Jared went pretty wide with his list with a lot of rage attacks. I basically front-loaded the Wedge with all my models except a version who's guarding the Informant marker. The idea was to have Pandora be in the middle of everything to make full use of Stable for the 2 damage Hazardous aura. I also planned to have the Insidious Menace fly to Jared's back marker, depending on how many bottles he decided to keep back. My planned scheme path was take the high ground, make it look like an accident, breakthrough, and assassinate. Turn 1 started up with Jared being very aggressive with his movement, sending Ulix to the left strat and some Squealers up to the center of the board with the Hawk Whisperer. He also sent the Sow to the right of the strat marker. A Slop Hauler also hits the right with the Sow. I tried to slow Ulix down by summoning Thralls onto him, but forgot about Frenzy Charge, so Ulix wasn't really gummed up as much as I wished he was. He managed to reposition himself well enough to sit on the center point. I managed to get the Carver into the Slop Hauler's face with the Smashing Pumpkin Soul Zone trigger, since he was hiding behind the Sow. Unfortunately though, I couldn't get enough damage off to kill him before he ran away with Slippery with Slop. Man, what a well-named ability. Jared did return the favor though by taking Carver down to 4 health using all the Squealers that were guarding the back strat marker. At the end of the turn, I had Delirium, Iggy, Pandora, and the Sisters against Ulix and a lot of picks tying up the strat in the center. Carver in the red cap got the right strat, and a Lonely Wild Boar controls the left strat. We both held the deployment zone markers, which meant we both scored strat. We also both took Take the High Ground, putting us both at 3-3. Turn 2 started off with the Carver bringing the Sow down to 3 health. I could have finished her off, but I decided to kill the 2 piglets that she spawned because I totally forgot that they don't count for the strat. But the threat of them growing into a war pig wasn't great either, so maybe it was the right call to kill them. Miraculously though, Carver did end up surviving the turn. I scored Make It Look Like an Accident on a summoned piglet using Pandora. However, Pandora was also a victim of an accident after she was lured by a Squealer. She actually gained an adversary token from the Slop Hauler, which worked to my advantage because of Luck Thief. She did end up below half health eventually, but it took a lot of AP from Jared's crew with all the neck flips. I managed to kill Ulix with the combination of the Sisters and the Delirium. Now this is why the Delirium is one of the MVP for this video, since he did most of the work and actually did like 5 damage by himself. 2 damage for placing Ulix onto a height 2 terrain, 1 from falling off, and then another 2 from the Hazardous aura from Lissa. Definitely one of the 2 plays that made him worthy of being on the paint table today. To the left side of the board, I also managed to pull the Hawk Whisperer off the point using the Delirious Thrall Convulsion trigger. End of turn, I scored strat and we both scored 2 for Make It Look Like Accident, bringing the score 6-5 for me. Following my plan, I chose Breakthrough since I had about a million scheme markers on the center line thanks to Paranoid tokens. Pandora finally gets taken down the first activation of turn 3, and the Carver finished off the Sow. We had about 2 activations left until the time ran out, so Jared ran 1 Squealer to my deployment zone to score 1 for Breakthrough. I then followed up with the Sisters to use Felon Knight twice to score 2 for my Breakthrough. Yes, the Sisters are indeed very dumb. We counted the strat twice here since it was the last turn of the game. This game definitely hurt my brain a lot with all the summoned piglets and trying to deny remain markers to prevent them from growing. I had a lovely time playing against Jared. He was a lovely opponent who walked me through all the info in his crew and shared some ridiculous info about how wacky Sui was in 3rd edition. Pandora was a lot of fun to play, and all the games where I got my cheeks clapped played off. I definitely felt like I should have used my crew card a bit more here, but I think things are slowly clicking together. Overall, I was pretty happy with how I played. Before I get into round 3, I want to give a quick shout out to the awesome folks at the arena. Thank you M-Game Scoring for allowing me to use the footage of her review of the shop. Please check out the socials in the description below. The arena is the ultimate FLGS in central Scotland for all your nerdy needs. On top of being extremely well stocked with the latest tabletop and card game supplies, and also Malifaux, they also have a gaming hall, a retro games library, and the coolest room of all, the Ivory Ferret, a private D&D room with a table with an interactive screen. The arena hosts a ton of events too, from 40k, Kill Team, Spearhead, Magic the Gathering, and of course, Malifaux. The Pink Shirts crew hosts 4 to 5 Malifaux tournaments in Scotland every year, and this year's Scottish TT will be the 10th one, so it's going to be pretty damn special. The TO, Kai, is also the brain behind the UK Malifaux's tournament software, Bag of Tools. So it's safe to say he's a bit of a pillar of the UK Malifaux community. If you're ever in Scotland, I genuinely recommend making a visit. I cannot stress how grateful I am to have found the arena through Malifaux, and I know they're going to continue to be a big part of my life. If you're new here and you're enjoying the content so far, hit subscribe. I post casual Malifaux 4th edition battle reports, and I guess I also post hobby stuff. Anyway, back to the show. Moving swiftly back to the final round of Spring Breach, the setup was Flank, Boundary Dispute, Grave Robbing, Leave Your Mark, and Public Demonstration. I was against Mikey, Scotland's speediest painter. If you ever bought a fully painted crew off eBay or Facebook Marketplace before, it was probably Mikey's. He's soloing Lin Lee for the event. Now, I've played him multiple times, and it was either me getting stumped or it was a narrow draw, so I knew I had to get my game on. Can't be choking on the top table like I did last tournament. The map for round 3 was this swamp town with lots of height 3 terrain and a height 1 and height 2 bridge walkway thing. I chose streamer Insomniac as planned. Since Boundary Dispute is interact heavy and having experienced bookkeepers beforehand, I wanted to go hard on Don't Turn Your Back models, so I hired the 2 MVP of this video, Delirium and Vasilisa. The idea is to spam out as many Thralls and Wicked Dolls and other summons as much as possible, so the rest of my crew are free to do whatever they want, like kick the strat or scheme. Now this could have easily bitten me in the ass, since Lin Lee's Storyteller can easily use my summons to turn into bookkeepers, but luckily, Mikey declared Lin Lee Blippy. I placed 2 of my strat markers towards the bottom left side and 1 to the top right. I deployed Vasilisa, Coppelius, and Delirium to the top right, and the rest of my crew near the other strat marker. Mikey deployed his crew grouped together in the center of his flank. I chose Lin Lee for my public demonstration target, so I knew I had to save Delirium as my last activation. Turn 1 started off with me kicking 1 strat marker with the Insidious Madness over the line, following up by Widow Weaver launching Choppy forward so that Dreamer can slingshot up with his own signature action. Mikey played a bit more conservative and passed his strat marker from model to model so that they are not in danger of being kicked back. Seeing most of his models are grouped together still, I went with Dreamer to summon a Thrall and an Alp to gum most of the crew up. I chickened out of summoning a 3rd model since Dreamer was literally like 6 inches from Mikey's whole crew, and instead used Inner Trance to pop him back to safety. Mikey then showed off why he went with his version of Lin Lee, and immediately went with her to exercise both of my summons. I think this was a positive gain for me though, since he cheated in 2 high crews and used up 2 APs. He didn't move Lin Lee up far enough to be in range for the Delirium to summon a Thrall, so I had to go with Chompy to move her out. This allowed Suzaku to come in and take Chompy down to 3 health. I couldn't make use of the range marker from the summons since they were too far, so Vasilisa just kicked my strat and walk over the line for this turn. Mikey managed to get all 3 stats over the line by this point, but Coppelius came in to save the day with Don't Mind Me and kicked 1 over, so we tied on strat. Last activation went as planned, and Delirium managed to summon 2 Thralls, engage Lin Lee, scoring me 1 for public demo. I was clenching my butt hard on the summon flip though, since I actually Black Jokered Thrall summons way too many times to count. Turn 1 ended 2-1 to me. I chose Assassinate on Wukong, and Mikey chose to keep his scheme. Turn 2 started off with Chompy getting obliterated by a Suzaku. I then immediately summoned a Wicked Doll with Vasilisa to tie down Lin Lee and a Bookkeeper. She also managed to get Wukong down to half health, scoring me the first point of Assassinate, but I couldn't go after the second point since Mikey managed to hold in the world the monkey away with Lin Lee. The crew card also made everyone quite tanky here, so it just wasn't worth it to chase after him. Lin Lee then exercised the 2 Thralls that were summoned last turn, which I think is still a net positive for me. Needless to say, the next 2 activations was just me summoning shit into Mikey's crew using Delirium and Dreamer. Widow kicked my third marker over the center line, and the two mantises continued pushing their 2 strats over to Mikey's deployment zone. The amount of summons meant that Mikey had a rough time kicking all of his markers up, and any that got kicked over, Coppelius just swiftly kicked back. End of the turn, I scored strat, taking the score to 3-1. I picked up Scout the Rooftop, and Mikey dropped Leave Your Mark. Turn 3 started with Mikey throwing Vasilisa off the building and burning her to her crisp with Susaku, soaring him both points for making it look like an accident. The roast chicken was on a rampage that game for sure. Again, I kept pressure up by summoning more thralls to stop his strat from getting kicked over easily. At this point, I knew I was pretty safe with my strategy, so I started looking at scoring the 2 points for Scout. I used Streaming to get 2 scheme markers onto a Type 3 building near the center after having used some madness to put one up on a different building. This clearly telegraphed my intention, and Mikey sent the Jade Rabbit to try and stop it. I did manage to get the rabbit off the point by obeying Susaku with Widow Weaver, but a bookkeeper quickly took its place since they couldn't interact with the strat markers anyway. Now, I nearly threw here since I decided to use 1 Manus to try and push the bookkeeper off with disembodied voices and failed. However, I was lucky enough that I managed to top deck a 7 for Coppelius to onwards and put 2 markers up a building on the top right flank that was too far for the second bookkeeper to reach and deny. We ran out of time at the end of turn 3, so I scored strat and 2 for Scout the Rooftop, putting the score 7-3 to me. Once again, I had a blast playing against Mikey. He was such a great sport when it came to dealing with all the bullshit that my crew summoned. The game was full of banter, and I knew for a fact that he has plans to mess me up for next time we play. And with that, I got my first 3-0 and my first gold trophy to take home. I had an awesome day playing Malifaux, and I am genuinely chuffed to finally have something to show for it. The day went by so fast because I had so much fun playing against all 3 of my opponents, and I honestly recommend everyone attend at least one Malifaux tournament in their lifetime. Having a rough plan of what I'm going to play for each round helped me quite a lot, I think. I definitely need more practice with Pandora before the next tournament though. Still don't think I'm quite using her to her full potential just yet. Right, now that I've done with the recap of the tournament, let's have a look at our 2 MVP in their fully painted glory. What do you think? Reckon I gave them the paint job they deserved? Let me know in the comments down below if you enjoyed seeing more of the hobby side of things. I genuinely want to know if this is something you guys want more of, or if you just rather I stick to battle reports. The next tournament is on the 27th of June, so there could be a recap for that one, with hopefully some decent footage. And if you want to keep the hobby vibes going in the meantime, I've put together a mega playlist of Malifaux 4th edition content from all the content creators in the community. It's on the end screen and it's perfect background noise for your next painting session, so I suggest giving it a watch. Thanks for listening to me ramble about my awesome time in the arena. That's all for me today, and I'll see you in the next battle report.